Okay, hi everyone. We're gonna start pretty soon. We're live. Thanks a lot for joining us, for registering, for taking the time out to meet with us. We're gonna give another 10-15 seconds for other registrants to get online, so bear with us. We're about to start the event. Welcome to you all. Thanks for joining us online as we share our story on how we positively contribute to our customers' digitalization journey. Digital transformation has grown in significance, not only in the workplace, but also in our personal lives, as coronavirus has really pushed the concept of digital life from shopping, learning, and communication. Our current event is just one example of our new digital lifestyle. Digitalization is also impacting on how we run our processing plants and how we collaborate virtually. One of the fundamental challenges we may encounter in our digital transformation journey is ensuring that all measurements and business events are fit for use in any derived digital assets. Sigmafine has been ensuring data reliability and usability for more than 30 years. We support many process industries such as oil and gas, metals and mining, bioprocesses, as well as utilities. The Sigmafine derived dataset has multiple consumers, from production accountant to data scientists, engineers, operations, and we are prepared to have the dataset ready for new users such as artificial intelligence platforms, asset optimization, data management, and so much more. Today, we, Pimsoft, Rsph, and Astron Energy share some insights on why you should get your data ready for the generation of such digital assets, which must be sustainable over time, reliable, and accessible to all decision makers. Thanks to everyone, both presenters and registrants. Our goal today at this Sigmafine seminar is to share with you digital assets, its context, meaning, and potential value to the process industry from a Pimsoft perspective. Astron journey with Sigmafine for hydrocarbon accounting and oil movement management. Learn also from our local partner, Rsph, an introduction to our community of this partnership, its strength for all our contacts in the territory. Last but not least, an overview of mining value of Sigmafine derived assets, crossing all industries, mines and metals, oil and gas, bioprocessing, while covering different business contexts, production accounting, loss reduction, metals accounting, golden batch detection, and so much more. I take the opportunity to highlight that we are going to be at the Aviva Pywolge in October, and November, please make a mark. We're going to have our annual event, the Sigmafine Virtual Summit, November 9th, 10th, and 11th. A few things to keep in mind. Firstly, the presentations should last 20 minutes, followed by Q&A of about 10 minutes. To ask a question, please use the comment section below. This presentation will be made available for download along with a recording. Please rate this seminar so that we can improve future experiences. Enjoy our first Sigmafine South Africa Regional Seminar. Thanks again.
Felicia, you're muted.
Thanks. Welcome again. Thanks for joining us. It's my pleasure to welcome Massimo Galli. He is the Vice President, Global Sales, and he's going to present transforming your data into digital assets from a Pimsoft perspective. Let's welcome Massimo.
Thank you, Felicia. Good morning, everybody, and welcome again to the Sigmafine South African Seminar. Today, my role is to introduce you to the theme of this seminar, which is also the mission of Sigmafine, which is transforming data into digital assets. Today, the object of our analysis is what we named digital asset. And what do we mean by a digital asset? Well, being digital refers to data and information stored digitally, and being an asset refers to anything that can be owned and controlled to produce a positive economic value. Consequently, a digital asset refers to data and information we own and control and use to generate tangible benefits. The advent of digital assets has resulted even in the emergence of a new discipline, infonomics, taking care on how to measure, manage, and monetize digital assets. Building, managing, and measuring digital assets involve a set of challenges touching several aspects such as data quality, data integration, and data analytics. On the front of data analytics, we have today a wide range of flourishing technologies, including predictive analytics and forecasting, mostly based on machine learning techniques. And on the side of data integration, the related methodologies are quite standardized since many years ago. Instead, the aspect of data quality, despite everybody recognizes its relevance, it is often overlooked and considered something collateral and of secondary importance. Indeed, we in Pimsoft consider data quality the solid foundation for every digital initiative, especially the ones aimed to provide prediction and forecasts to support business and operational decisions. We believe that consistent digital assets coupled with measurable data quality indicators are the base for a healthy investment on digital initiatives. The issues we have to face in producing digital assets are mostly depending on the data defects which can occur all along the data transformation chain. First, we all know that every piece of information we consider in our calculation comes with an intrinsic, unavoidable precision limitation. Then, when we analyze production and consumption around an envelope, we know that the measurements never add up. And moreover, such defects may be related to the instrumentation level, to the data acquisition infrastructure, and to inappropriate data calculation and transformation steps, as well as to human data manipulation. So we would like to automate the process as much as possible and make the curation of defect a sustainable practice, and use data quality indicators to drive investment back to the measurement system. For example, where should I place a new flow meter in my plant to maximize the outcome of my investment in new measurements? We also want to create a usable digital asset with a higher degree of accuracy and a lower possible degree of uncertainty, ready to be consumed by the digital value chain. To face the challenges above, Sigmafine relies on a model-driven data quality approach. So the center of the transformation process is a model. And what do we intend for a model? The model is the conceptualized representation of the subject of our analysis. It can embrace an entire production facility or a single process unit or an utility or distribution network. It embeds the engineering and operational expertise of the company and where required it includes even business and/or compliance rules. Such model is typically fed by the real-time data infrastructure with process data and where required with laboratory data, business transaction and more. And for all the reasons introduced above, we cannot ignore that each piece of data entering the transformation chain cannot be assumed to be exact or correct. It brings with it an inherent degree of uncertainty. To minimize the effect of such uncertainties around the model, Sigmafine ran a set of analytics whose objective function is to find a current solution minimizing the uncertainty of the resulting dataset. By the way, this has been the job of Sigmafine and its user for almost 3 decades now. The output of this transformation process is not just a union of multiple individual data streams, but the best statistical dataset approximating the true value of our measurement system. For those who know Sigmafine, in Sigmafine terminology, this is defined to be a case. Indeed, this is a digital asset embedding both the so-called reconciled measurement and the trackable statistical data quality indicators, which can be used and for several purposes, including but not limited to improve operational performance, to support accounting and finance duty, to feed predictive analytics tools. However, it is important to notice that this is not just a one-shot achievement, but it must be turned into a practice to be managed over time. So the set of cases or digital assets produced over time is the foundation for a validated, controlled and measurable system of record for the company. and the adoption of a data quality practice is the one allowing to minimize the uncertainty, avoiding financial losses and maximize financial gains, which indeed brings us back to the definition of what a digital asset is. But how Sigmafine enables so many industries in adopting a data quality improvement process? At first, through data reconciliation, which constrains the data with first principle equations, such as conservation of mass, volume, energy, or component, while simultaneously minimizing the uncertainty associated with the measurements. On top of data reconciliation, tracking and genealogy capabilities allow to infer physical properties, grades, stream qualities, as well as ownership and other business categories. However, Sigmafine is not only a set of advanced analysis. Its foundation is an asset database which is fully configurable, customizable, and extensible to adapt to the needs and requirements of different industries. It can scale in size from very small models of few hundreds of assets to very large scenarios where models are composed of tens of thousands of assets. Finally, it provides seamless integration with the customer infrastructure, able to interfacing bidirectionally with disparate data sources and data repositories, such as historian, planning and scheduling system, movement system, ERPs, and business intelligence tools. But let's see a real case where Sigmafine is applied in a downstream for the energy monitoring of a crude distillation furnace. The raw dataset you can see on the left is used to study the correlation between measured oxygen in the flue gases and the furnace efficiency. As you can see, the raw dataset shows a very poor correlation because of the inaccuracy of the measured data. In this case, this company applied Sigmafine to perform a data conditioning step based on mass and energy conservation principle, resulting in reducing the inaccuracy of the oxygen measure and making the resulting dataset suitable for the use by the energy manager. So the expected correlation appears. We have seen the importance of achieving a more reliable and accurate dataset, but we have learned that it is extremely important to provide a measure of how much reliable and accurate the dataset is. This is provided by a set of data quality indicators calculated by Sigmafine. Some of them, like the overall imbalance indicator, are model-oriented and provide a general measure of how the overall system of measurement involved behave over time. These and other model-based indicators are often used to provide a trackable justification basis to demonstrate the compliance to authorities, such as the one related to the SOX Act and to environmental agencies. Other indicators are generated per each piece of the measurement involved in the model. The measurement correction indicator is used to rank meters and provide an early detection of bad measurement to be put under investigation. So the capability of measuring our dataset is the foundation to be able to monetize the information gain we can obtain by transforming our data and put in place a sustainable practice of continuous improvement. With that, I would like to summarize again the Sigmafine mission, which is to implement a repeatable and sustainable practice for transforming process and manufacturing data into digital asset with the objective to create a positive economic value for our customer. We in Pimsoft are not alone in doing this. Sigmafine is sustained by an ecosystem of customer, partners, and industry experts who are with us along this data transformation journey. And today you will listen to the story by Astron Energy, by our trusted partner Rsph, and several Sigmafine use cases from different industries by Felicia. Okay, with that, I would like to thank you for your time and attention, and I would like you to enjoy the rest of the seminar. Thank you.
Thanks, Massimo, for giving us our first talk. Next, we're going to hear from Siva. He is the mass balance, refinery mass balance engineer from Astron Energy. And he's one of our super users. He's using Sigmafine on both arms for the mass balancing arm as well as the tracking. So let's hear from Siva and how Sigmafine is improving how things are at the Astron refinery in Cape Town. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. My name is Massimo Galli. I'm a refinery mass balance engineer at Astron Energy, South Africa. This presentation is about how Astron Energy monitors its stocks and fiscal movements to support timely validated data for downstream ERP systems using Sigmafine Intelligent Movement Management System. The content of this presentation, who we are as Astron Energy, the Sigmafine journey at Astron Energy, stock balance and reconciliation, stock balance, workflow, and Sigmafine benefits, IMM scope and context, IMM benefits, potential next steps. Astron Energy is a leading South African supplier of petroleum products. We own and operate the country's third largest crude oil refinery in Cape Town. With a throughput of 100,000 barrels a day, we also operate a lubricant plant in Durban. We have roughly about 850 Caltex service stations. Our products that we produce include petrol, diesel, jet, fuel oil, and LPG. We roughly have about 500 direct jobs and 13,000 suppliers and contractor jobs. So this is the overview of basically the entire presentation. Basically, it's the gap analysis, and that is Astron Energy intensified as it sought to comply to SOX data quality corporate governance. Astron Energy digital transformation addressed the need to improve quality of refinery and automate the production accounting through data reconciliation solution. And then how we resolve that. This presentation provides an overview of the transformation from legacy solutions towards Sigmafine and OSIsoft solutions for managing the process data needed for supporting business processes in inventory management, external purchases, sales of feedstocks, and finished products, as well as production accounting on a daily basis. How we improve that? Astron Energy uses Sigmafine mass balance and its intelligent movement management, and that is IMM, for daily production accounting and near real-time oil movement management. The aim is to improve operations and business process through the avoidance of costly errors and identification and implementation cost reducing projects. This is our Sigmafine journey. Basically, the Stone Age, we started on the Excel sheet. That's how we used to do our mass balance. That was prior to 2013. And that was tedious exercise, too many manual entries and human errors in the process, which was deemed ineffective. And then that's why we introduced Sigmafine and implemented it, and together with Promise. That was in 2013. We started with version 4.6. Basically, Promise was just the front of Sigmafine then, which feeds Sigmafine. Those were the inputs and flow meter information, the transfers, and all that stuff. That was implemented in 2013. And then from there, because we were going to demolish or Promise, and then we started the testing and preparation for the decommissioning of Promise. That was in 2017. And then in 2018, we decommissioned Promise and installed IMM. So now, on the very same year, we upgraded to IMM and integrated that with SEP. And that basically improved volume tracking, became relatively easy to pick up stock imbalances. It reduced manual data inputs. It became easy to validate that are the product specs that are required in the VCF calculations. So basically, I'll just talk you through the mass balance journey. Sigmafine in a plant-wide mass balance Sigmafine reconciles hydrocarbon movement within the refinery boundary, as some may say, the fence line, and that includes feed and product meters for process units, tank inventory and transfers within the refinery boundary, pipeline shipments, and receipts. All hydrocarbon streams within the refinery, except fuel gas, and that our model excludes water, steam, and sulfur plants. We monitor the refinery imbalances on a midnight to midnight basis. Basically, on Sigmafine, there are two types of reconciliation that occur on the mass balance analysis rule. That is between 2 or more meters, balance between a tank and a tank, or a tank and a meter, and a node. So in order for us to track that, we use the primary metric DX1, that is the measure of the amount of correction required to close the balance. And then that is calculated, obviously, by Sigmafine. And basically, our target is we try to keep the overall imbalance below 5%. Sigmafine data reconciliation. Currently, all real-time process information, such as flow rates, levels, captured by Pi, but we don't know how accurate that information is. Then Sigmafine helps to validate this information. Then the corrected Pi data is fed to Sigmafine model, which will point out all the gross errors. It is then the job of the mass balance engineer, that is myself, to eradicate all these gross errors before a good set of reconciled results can be published for everyone to use. Errors can include anything from a noisy or a sticky gauge, sticky tank gauge, a bad flow meter, or a temperature indicator. That could cause bad temperature adjustments, bad transfer data, and et cetera, et cetera. Basically, on the far right, on the right, we have our model, and then Sigmafine model, and then our raw data, and then we reconcile that information. And then if the gross error exists, and then we try to pinpoint or eliminate those gross errors, and if all goes well, and then we have our reconciled data that we write back to Pi. So the data quality, on the data quality perspective, Sigmafine mass balance helps to reconcile flow meter raw values. The DX1 is the primary performance indicator used. The target, like I mentioned, is 5%. But with the aid of Sigmafine Advanced Diagnosis add-in, which is the ADA, improving the measurement data quality has improved so that the internal DX1 target been lowered to on an average of 3%. And as you can see on the graph, we have our 2019 data. That is the DX1 monthly average. We try to keep it on average of 3%, but the benchmark is 5%. And then now moving to IMM, which is the Intelligent Movement Management. Sigmafine IMM functions. IMM is mainly used for the following: tank monitoring information system, that is TMS, Sigmafine transfer input creation for mass balance case execution, transfer tracking near real time, and historization of oil movements. So basically, if we break down these primary functions, we have our TMS, which is a tank monitoring system. We then use that for movement status monitoring, tank property monitoring, tank volume, and delta stock calculator. And then the Sigmafine inputs, and then that is transfer creation. And then we close those active transfer, which IMM automatically does that at the end of each day, that is at midnight. And then we feed those into Sigmafine. And then oil movement database, which is for safe condition monitoring, which basically means like if a tank is moving and there's no declared movement, then one will raise a call as to find out what's going on and all that information. And then the delta daily stock balancing, which is what happened on a particular day. And then for audit purposes, the nice thing about this database is that the information is there, and you can call that information up. Say if we have auditors a year later, or annual auditing, the guys will come around and ask certain questions about certain volumes or a specific movement, and then it's easy to just filter down and then go to exactly what happened on that specific movement on that particular day. The summary, which is stock balance issues. So basically, these are basically the issues and that we had and how we resolved them with IMM. Because initially there were no warning of potential high month-end mass balance errors. So the solution with IMM, tank monitoring system, and set inconsistency conditional warnings. So basically, we try to resolve those errors. We catch those errors more like in real time instead of waiting when you have to close our stock balance at month end. So on the daily, we can see what's happening. Why is this movement going and it's not declared and all that stuff. And then the other issue that we had was a monthly delay of monthly stock imbalances. So basically what we now do is with IMM, we manage to have a daily overview of potential stock imbalances. And then undetected error in measurement, and that can be a level indicator that is faulty, or temperature point that is faulty. Basically, these are the primary inputs that we use for volume calculations. So if there's a problem with a TI point, we'll get an error of, we can't get that specific volume, and then we can easily say, okay, hey, there's a problem with this, and then we send the guys to verify that information if it's correct or fix whatever that is broken. And then, so this is basically the workflow, IMM workflow. This is like who does what at what stage of a transfer. So basically we have our planners, that is our oils planners, the schedulers. We have so these guys plan a movement as per plan, and then that information filters down to operations lead. And then that guy will then approve a transfer or rejects a transfer. It depends on the practicality of that transfer outside in the field. And then if that information is, if they agree with the planner, and then they will approve that information, and then that will filter down to the DCS operator, who will then start and stop a movement. And then that will be me, the mass balance engineer, who will then validate all the closed movements. So basically, these are the responsibilities of each one. So the planners will input their daily movements, and then the operations lead will approve or reject a movement. And then the DCS operator will start and close approved movements, and then the mass balance engineer will validate the closed movements. So the benefits of this workflow, it's for data accuracy, because there's this interdepartment connectivity. There's not one person that checks this information. So like, for instance, a planner might make a mistake and they require X amount of volume to be transferred or pumped out, or whatever the case may be. And then the operations lead will say, no, hey, we have this issue here. This is not practically possible outside. These are the limitations that we have. And then when they are in sync, the DCS operator will say, hey, but you can't do this, or you can do that. And then after that transfer is closed, I then come through to validate that information and say, okay, this is the information, it's correct, and I agree with it, and then validate that movement. And also this also improved the personal integrity in these departments, because now you know as a person that if you don't do or you don't action this, someone is also waiting beneath you and all that. So yeah, that's the other benefit about it. And also here we have our oil movement database use and structure. So basically our IMM, we like I mentioned before, basically we use it for three things: daily stock balance, Sigmafine inputs for all our daily movements, and then for audit trail. So if you can just see on the snip, those are all the validated movement, like a snip of the second month, the start time, the end time, the mass in kilograms, and the material. You can always filter that, or you want to see, was it crude, was it diesel, was it jet? Right. So basically, this is just the IMM display features. All tanks properties are monitored, and display is fully customizable based on user preference. Basically, you can choose what you want to monitor on the screen, and then you can configure that from System Explorer or whatever. And then, like for instance, if you want to see density, if you want to see Carl Fisher or Paw Point, whatever the case may be, it's up to you. So, and also the tank monitoring, this helps with the tracking of fiscal movements in real time. And that includes the transfer planning, the monitoring of that transfer, the tank movement status, the product quality monitoring. Like for instance, if you look at density, you will know you want that density to be this, and then this is the captured density at the lab, and then you'll start asking questions and all that information. So basically, you will have these sorted columns at the top, and you can choose what you want to see first on the far right and all that information. And also, if you can see there, if I open up IMM, I will have this view as to what happens, or the 10 that are changing, that have errors and all that information, so that I can make the necessary calls. Like for instance, if you see all these tanks that are red, they have change in them. There is a delta, the delta volume rate, but there's no declared movement. So that means obviously on the workflow we discussed, someone didn't plan it. It's not in the system. Hence this. So then I'll ask questions on that specific tank. Like for instance, on the first row, there's like 478 tubes an hour. What's happening? There's a positive delta in that tank, but there's no movement. And that can be from a safety point of view now. You can't be moving something and then you didn't declare it. So that means that there's a problem, or there's a system disconnect. And also at the bottom there, we have the consistent tanks, which means you can see they are checked and there are no red warnings, which means everything is correct. There's a declared movement and it's moving the way it's supposed to be, or there's no declared movement and it's not moving. So basically, these are the conditions that must align. Now we move to the stock balance workflow. So basically, we have our oil movement daily validation, and those are imports, exports, and internal movements. And then we create a monthly tank inventory case and publish that to the SQL server. And then that moves over to oil accounting, which will retrieve the published information together with the opening, closing inventory, and all other tank properties that they require. And then, so the oil movement on the first one, it happens on the daily on IMM. And then the creation of a monthly tank inventory that we publish on SQL, we use the SQL access. That happens at month end, and then that goes over to the oil accounting, or the production accounting, as some may say. And it happens at SEP, and then that happens at month end. The daily stock balance. This is just how the information filters down. So basically, this part here, if I may go back a bit here, if you have the stock balance workflow at month end, This happens at month end. This poses a risk of having information that might have happened mid-month and no one knows, or at the beginning of the month. And then it's very, very difficult to close a month end if you look at a full month data. So now what we've done, we're like, okay, let's just break it down to a daily view. So what we have previously, we have a full month, you reconcile everything, imports, exports, all your 10 closing inventories and all that stuff. So now we're like, okay, let's try to scale it down on the daily. So what we'll do then, we'll take the daily closing inventories, which are provided by Sigmafine. Those the corrected net volumes, opening, closing, and then we'll have our transfers from IMM, which will be imports, exports, and all internal movements. And then we'll have stock balance by products, and then we will use Excel reports month to date. So basically, if the date is the second, we know we don't have imbalances up until the second. And then on the 15th day of the month, we know everything balances up until that day. So that at month end, we don't have these imbalances by product. So it becomes relatively easy to close off that balance of a full month. And then which also helps the production accounting guys to have less time to report, and because those guys, they work on very tight deadlines. Right. And then the Sigmafine data consumers, which is now the reconciled data, the oil movements that feeds into Sigmafine, and then we reconcile that information. We'll have our value chain and optimization guys that they will use for trying to optimize their plans. And then we'll have our oils planning teams, which will be your schedulers, your planners, and then we'll have our operations, which they monitor this information. They check if it's correct. They start movements, stop movements. And then we'll have our reliability and maintenance guys, which will say, okay, this flow meter is slightly over-reading or under-reading. Can you please check it out and all that stuff? And then we'll have the finance guys, which is the production accounting, the process engineering, which they will take our reconciled volumes to do their daily routines, to monitor their KPIs and all that information. And also the environmental, which is for government reporting purposes. So basically, these are our data consumers of Sigmafine across their organization. And then in summary, Astron Energy has transformed its data into a digital asset through its Sigmafine journey. And from here, really, the possibilities are endless. We can see what you can do next, because at this point in time, everything is still okay. And then we have our stock balance process that became more efficient, because we used to take a lot of time in closing our stock balances at month end. So relatively now, everything flows seamlessly. And then in the process of the Stone Age stuff, we had so many redundant processes that have been eliminated, and thus giving us more time to focus on what matters. And then we have improved our volume tracking on a daily basis, which then about like 80% of manual inputs have been automated, hence reducing our human errors, because some guys, this guy will have his own spreadsheet. There's some duplication of information. One guy and the other guy is doing the same thing, where now we have everything all at one place. Next steps, we are still considering IMM transfer calculation plugin, basically for alarming, which have listening capabilities surrounding measurements to deduce delta stock. So it's still in the exploration stages as to how can it help us, and because it happens on version 4.7. So for us to do this, we still have to upgrade our Sigmafine version to 4.7, and then we will see now if you want the plugin and all that stuff. And then The other thing that we want to do is basically to break down our Sigmafine model into single unit models. Basically, what we'll do, the mass balance engineer has a refinery-wide information. So now if we break that down, like for instance, the platformer has its own model, and then that model is handed over to a unit engineer. And then we have our diesel plant, that model is given to a diesel engineer. So now this will make Sigmafine information more digestible to process engineers, because they can now plan, they can now view their KPIs, and for loop-back purposes, because now the guy will say, how did I perform yesterday and all that stuff. And because they also do their daily mass balance, they also consider some things that we don't consider in the refinery-wide balance. It's basically breaking it down to the minute details now, so that everyone has their own view in their own unit, and then they can reconcile their data. And then if we agree, then they can publish that information and write it back to Pi for everyone else to use. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sive. Thanks a lot for sharing at our first local event here in Africa. Do we have any questions? Okay, can you give an insight on the workflow prior to Sigmafine?
Thank you, Valencia, and thank you for that question. And prior to Sigmafine, we had a very lengthy exercises. I think I've stipulated in the presentation. It was all Excel spreadsheets, all manual inputs, tank dips, and all that information. But we sort of like, through the introduction, streamlined that type of inputs. But before Sigmafine, it was all spreadsheets.
Okay. Everybody had their own version of the truth.
Exactly. And you know, with the spreadsheets, there's too much duplication of data, and everyone is doing the same calculation in their corners. And then, yeah, it was that.
Okay. And that leads me to ask you a follow-on question. Now that you've moved from Excel spreadsheets, everything manual, to better instrumentation, better data management of the data with Sigmafine and Pi, what's the most significant benefit to date in your daily work by using Sigmafine?
Well, I think the most significant one would be the support of production accounting. It wasn't easy at first. We used to take a couple of days to close monthly stock reconciliation, but through the introduction of Sigmafine and the integration with the ERP system, everything became relatively easy. And in terms of the view, the daily views, and the daily or the month-to-date stock balancing. So in that regard, everything, I would say, we are doing pretty well. And of course, there's always a room for improvement. We still have some minor errors here and there, but we are progressing to the right direction.
Thank you. Thanks, Sive. Do we have any other questions? If not, we will move to our next presenter.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. It's my pleasure to welcome Dilly. He is the Chief Vision Officer at Rsph, and he's gonna elaborate on their expertise at Rsph, which includes Sigmafine and its potential benefit to the territory. Welcome, Dilly.
Thank you, Alicia, and may I also extend my warm greetings on behalf of Rsph to all the attendees. I'm connecting live from the beautiful city of Cape Town, where I spent 2 weeks, and sadly I leave today. Looking at the registered attendees, I'm very encouraged that this is an African summit, and we have representation from South Africa, from Zimbabwe, from Botswana, from Namibia, from Ghana, Nigeria, amongst other African countries, in the sectors that Sigmafine is focused on, which is the petrochemical and the process industry. You would also notice that the theme we've selected for this, using the icon Madiba, from prisoner to data freedom. Our observation, like Madiba, has been behind walls without having access to information and the truth, if you will, to make some decisions. We find that due to the silos that have developed over the years and the lack of integration and transparency that you see from Sigmafine, that most decision makers in companies do not know what the truth is. So how does this support your business strategy so that you could make decisions, including acquisitions, especially in the mining sector and the allied processing sectors? You'll also notice subtly I have a new designation on my name, from CEO to CBO. At times like this, Massimo and Felicia talked about digitalization, and I'm connecting from Cape Town. Massimo and Felicia are connecting from Italy, and the other team is based in Houston in Italy, and Siva at Astron in Cape Town. So the executives of companies today need to understand that it's through the use of technology and the empathy that you have for users that you're going to start developing integration from your business strategy right to where the work happens, which is on the shop floor, so that you can make business decisions. It so happens that Rifle Shot is also celebrating its 20th anniversary this year. 20 years of enhancing clients' business and operational performance. The founders of Rifle Shot, Ian Huntley and Guy Imbert, some 20 years ago, 2 decades, selected the name Rifle Shot, and it was largely about the focus of this organization, contrary to a shotgun approach where you're trying to be all things to all people. So you are the first audience that will be seeing a video that we've put together encapsulating the 2 decades of Rifle Shot. So I'd like to share that video with you. So sit back, relax, and I will come back after you've viewed the video.
I want to take this opportunity to congratulate Rifle Shot and the team on their 20th anniversary. It is through Rifle Shot's dedication and perseverance that they have achieved this milestone, and I wish them every success, prosperity, and growth into the future.
Welcome to Rifle Shot in our 20th year. From the outset, we've chosen to fill that area which has the most impact on companies. The operational support. Operations, as we all know, is where you make or lose money, and we've chosen to partner with the best in the world to bring the most value to our customers.
Ever since we started the business 20 years ago, we have focused on delivering our customers the best quality we can, along with on-time delivery for the best possible results and the quickest impact on their operations and profitability.
It seems like only yesterday that both the management teams of Medalla & Associates and Rifle Shot Performance Holdings decided to join forces. This was with view to combining both our local as well as our global experience, knowledge, skills, and our business offerings. And the idea was to bring this to the Rifle Shot clients. To date, feedback from our clients has been extremely positive with regards to innovative thought leadership and business enhancing offerings.
An
and Dumelang, and hello everyone. My name is Hope Tazana, a junior consultant at Rsph and the youngest member of our team. It's been a privilege being at Rsph for the past 5 years with our leaders Ian, Dilly and Guy, who not only treat us with the same care and passion as they do all our clients, but they have broken all the barriers of a male-dominated industry and have enabled a young, ambitious woman like me to spread my wings and thrive.
Congratulations for your first 20 years of success. You are an active strategic partner, and we wish you the best for the coming years. Rifle Shot is more than a partner. They are our friends with high compromises in technology, in software, and in the country. Good luck.
On behalf of AdaptRT, I would like to congratulate Rifle Shot Performance Holdings on 2 decades of delivering value to their customers. As a long-standing partner, we have valued our relationship with Rifle Shot, not only because of the experience and the depth of expertise that they are able to bring to bear on the types of customer challenges that we encounter, but also because of our shared values, particularly of respect and professionalism. We've certainly endured some tough times over those 2 decades, but we've also enjoyed a great many successes and reaped those rewards. I would like to wish Ian, Guy, Dilly, and the whole team at Rifle Shot all the very best in the years that lie ahead.
Congratulations to the Rifle Shot team for this 20 years celebration event. Pimsoft is very pleased to join this highly experienced team of digitalization experts who are known to merge advanced services and niche IT products to deliver high-impact projects to the South African process industry. Happy anniversary to the Rsph team.
I want to congratulate Rifle Shot's team for celebrating 20 years of commitment in promoting digital transformation to all business sectors in South Africa. Their 20 years can be summarized as maturity and experience in delivering innovative concepts and best practices to achieve world-class performance in operations and management. Happy anniversary, Rifle Shot!
So hopefully that gives you a snapshot of some of the people in Rifle Shot and the offerings that we have. What I would like to do now is unpack some of the information that we shared with you on the video. Firstly, the partnership with Pimsoft Sigmafine, although we had known Pimsoft Sigmafine and the enterprise historian OSI Pi for many, many years, it was only about a year ago that we had a meeting of the minds, which was a natural fit between the Rifle Shot and Pimsoft Sigmafine in terms of the industry sectors that we focus on. So very, very excited about the authorized professional service appointment from Pimsoft to Rifle Shot. Of course, we have several years of experience, not only in South Africa, but the team, the management team at Rifle Shot has over 180 years of experience working in different countries in Africa. And when I speak to some people in other parts of the world, namely the US, they think Africa is one country. They don't understand that we have sub-Saharan Africa, East Coast, West Coast, etc. And it's complex. So we understand the complexity, and I've personally worked in countries like DRC, Nigeria, amongst other countries. And what is the cost of doing that business? The cultural nuances, etc. So we understand that. We also understand the business side of things and the technology information experience that we have, which fits in very well with what you've seen from people like Massimo and Siv as far as the information management areas. The industry sector experience that we have, it mirrors the Pimsoft Sigmafine focus industry sectors. And of course, the enterprise asset management area. And Massimo talked about digital being an asset. I would like to see the day where executives on their balance sheet put a rand value or a dollar value on their assets, like some companies do with the brand value of the company brand. And that's the value of using something like Sigmafine. So we're also very involved, as you saw in the video, in the whole area of value chain optimization. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in the upcoming slides. The applications knowledge, and this was shared earlier on in terms of the manufacturing execution systems, the whole area of the overall equipment effectiveness area, the SCADA systems, and all those back-end environments that you have. In the days that my management team and myself were involved, we used to call these things databases. Today, we talk about data lakes and enterprise historians. So we have evolved to understand the difference between an enterprise historian and having something on an Excel spreadsheet that's trying to pretend to be a database. So as you saw in the video, Rifle Shot is about focus. So we are focused in the oil, gas, petrochemical area, the mining, minerals, and the metals area, the power, energy, utilities area, the biopharmaceutical area, the food and beverages, and the manufacturing, both the process as well as discrete manufacturing. What I'd like to do on this slide and the next slide is basically unpack some of the partnerships that we have over several decades other than Pimsoft. So if you look at the industry sector, the oil, gas, petrochemical, we have an offering from a company called Ion Commodities, which is one of the largest commodity trading companies in the world based in New York. And Rifle Shot has had a partnership for several years where we are doing demand forecasting, planning, optimization, both for the energy, chemicals environment for companies like Sasol as an example, who has a footprint in over 30 countries around the world. What is interesting about this partnership is that we are part of the Global Center of Excellence. So we try to help create South African jobs that we can deploy in other parts of the world. The other partnership that we have is a strategic partnership with a company that most of you are familiar with called Aviva. In the oil and gas business, they have a unified planning and scheduling offering, which basically manages the feedstock. So if your crude is coming in by ship, managing the movement of that feedstock to your depot, through the refineries, doing the blending, grading, and back to depot. So what we do between ION and Aviva is create a 360-degree with Aviva from management of the feedstock that's coming in, and with ION managing the sales, if you will, the demand forecasting, planning, and optimization. We also have an offering from Aviva, which is largely in the enterprise asset management environment, the mobility, and the predictive maintenance side. And of course, this event is about Pimsoft and Sigmafine. As I mentioned, from what we have seen, it's a natural fit for us. There are several organizations that we believe, and as you would know, some of the things that Siv shared with you, 0.5% in the petrochemical industry can have a huge impact on your bottom line in terms of managing your production accounting, your process accounting, mass balancing, loss management, etc. So this is very, very exciting for us for the future. I did a benchmark, and in the African context, my understanding is there's about 40 petrochemical companies in Africa. There's a long list of 400 mining companies and a number of investments taking place in the mining exploration environment. So we see a tremendous opportunity in future with Pimsoft Sigmafine moving forward. We also have an offering from ION. It's something that's in the commodities area, specifically around coal, the old coal planning environment and the iron planning environment. Companies that are using this are the likes of Exxaro, Anglo American, Kumba, amongst others globally. We are very proud of the partnership that we have with Adapt IT. Proud because we are passionate South Africans and African. This is an innovative technology. People talk about AI or artificial intelligence today. This has been built some years ago into the engine of this. It's an electronic permit to work system. It is focusing on the human element, traditionally the blue-collar workers that are working by the thousands in the mining, utilities, and petrochemical oil and gas environment. So Rifle Shot has been a partner in this environment for some years, not only in South Africa, but it's become a standard for the likes of companies like BHP across all their commodities in Australasia. Some of the South African companies is the likes, as you saw in the video, of Eskom, which is the largest utility power company in Africa. And what we do there over several years, we have a multi-year contract with them on an annual renewable basis, and right from integration with biometrics for access control, then looking and matching the task work order, integrating to SAP HR to look at the competencies of the people. And then we link that to things like SAP plant maintenance, and last but not least, the whole area of governance, risk, and compliance. Other than the Eskom example, we have it in several mining companies, including Tronox, Sibaya Stillwaters, amongst others in South Africa. One of the things I'm very pleased to announce that since the advent of COVID, around about March last year in South Africa, where we had the lockdown, we have now adapted a virtual implementation strategy with one of the Anglo companies called Amplats. And the team at Rifle Shot have done an unbelievable job in figuring out how we can do this virtually, which to the company like Rifle Shot, we are saving on the time. As you would know, the mines are very remote. You've got to drive hundreds of miles to get to them. So the savings on the S&T costs. And so this is something that we're very excited about moving forward, which will become a standard way of us operating, utilizing the mine managers and the project managers that work with the company on site. So we'll be working a lot with this. We also find that these companies are linking to what they call the operational risk management systems within the group companies. So we're very excited about this. We've also got interest from companies within the Indian subcontinent, and also representation of this electronic permit to work in the United Arab Emirates with the oil and gas companies. Epico is a partnership that we have specifically for discrete manufacturing, where you have complex bills of materials. And like most companies who have moved to the cloud, they have a very good value proposition. So you would find that products like Epico can be your tier 2 ERP system. So if you're a large company who is using the SAPs and the Oracles of the world, you can link that to. The next company, Aptean, we have a partnership with them in 2 areas. One is on the OEE side, the overall equipment effectiveness measurement side, as well as the process side. So we have a partnership with the Aptean product that is called ROS. So if you look at the processing environment, especially in the food and beverages environment, we call it from farm gate to dinner plate. So how do you do track and tracing? And you're understanding if there's an outbreak of any issue like the Strostus, which we had in South Africa. It's a big issue, and it's a very specialized product, and we're very proud to be a partner of Aptean. Last but not least, we have a catch-all offering, and you saw Ricardo, the CEO of SoftExpert, who's based in Brazil. Company started some 25 years ago. It is a world leader in the platform that they've created. It's almost like a puzzle, where you'll be able to preserve your current investments if you're using things like Microsoft SharePoint or existing ERP systems. And in the areas of business process management, with all these changes that are taking place with digitalization, if you're not changing your business processes, you're going to have huge challenges. Ultimately, it's very good at governance, risk, and compliance. I think Siv also shared with you the SOX compliance as one example. And then the whole area of corporate performance management. So strategy, as I said earlier on, is set at the C level. How do you bring all this information to do the management from a corporate performance management in each one of those KPI environments? So that is a snapshot of the offerings that we have. Going to this particular forum, and it was talking about digital assets. So you'll see there's data everywhere. And as the companies get older, the silos get even bigger. But there's no insight to make business decisions. So I've taken an example of a typical commodities value chain. So if you look at what we do in the whole area of the inventory, rail, part, etc., we can provide you with solutions from the offerings that you've already seen. And then the whole area of the production environment with solutions like Sigmafine from Pimsoft. So what we see is the area of value chain optimization from feedstock to consumer. And that's from the companies that we work with. We have a term in rifle shot, and Excel was mentioned several times in this forum. And for us, ERP equals Excel run production. You cannot run production on Excel. Excel is a great complementary tool. But if you really want to measure the kind of things that Siv shared with you, you need a product like Pimsoft Sigmafine. There is a need, as Felicia said, for digitalization and transformation. Number of you have got the SCADA systems, the manufacturing execution, the PLCs, the what is called the human machine interfaces, now moving into machine learning, artificial intelligence, etc. So how do we start connecting all these things? Because traditionally, most of the equipment have only been managing itself in terms of the performance of the equipment. So how do we take the OEE, the operator equipment effectiveness, and multiply that with the OLE, which is the overall labor effectiveness, so that you start getting the organization integration and understanding what the actual benefits to you as a company. So we should stop guessing and let data insight give you business decisions so that you can make decisions on future investments, etc. I want to share with you a little bit about the approach that Rifle Shot has to professional services. You'll see that we've coined the term called resultants as opposed to consultants. So in our view, a resultant can do everything a consultant to do. But the difference is that we try to understand the business challenge rather than leading with the product. So once we understand that, we work with our clients on a measurable milestones outcome. And people talk about agile today. So we do that in small increments of about 3 months at a time to look at a proof of value. And we have a term where we go slow to go fast. So we can replicate this over a period. And that's what we've done on some of the examples I've shared with you. So The other thing that we have in the company is what we call innovation cube. So most people look at innovation as a product, but to us, innovation is how you think. So why are we doing this? Why is this company embarking on cloud? Is it a fashionable thing to do? Why should you not remain on-premise? Are you doing it because the OEM is asking you to move to cloud? So we challenge that and we question that. And once we understand that, the cube is about looking at the third dimension. What is the benefit ultimately to the consumer? So that's the mindset that we have in our program and project management. So we do overall program and project management, creating the steer comms between all the stakeholders, including the client stakeholders. You must have seen some of the people in the video where we have subject matter experts for each one of the areas that we focus in. So an example would be Martin, who you saw, is a senior consultant for the whole value chain optimization area. And Bo, for example, and Hope are very focused in the whole area of electronic permit to work and so forth with the others. So we just try not to be generalists, but are specialist subject matter experts. And of course, a number of those clients that you've seen, some of them are big brands like the Anglo-Americans of the world, the Escoms of the world. We have ongoing service level agreements, support and service. So we do the SLA support and work very closely going back to our original equipment partners. So in most cases where we work with our clients, we find that through this process, the clients have a clear road ahead. They have a much better understanding that in the areas that we are engaged with, that this is not done as a silo or in isolation. Does it actually meet the business strategy, the business goals, improving productivity, improving the bottom line? And we believe by doing that, you will start moving from being a prisoner to data freedom, because through Sigmafine and Pimsoft, you'll be able to get the truth of what is happening within the organization. So that concludes my presentation. My details are on the screen. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to take those, Felicia. Thank you.
Thank you, Dilly. Thanks for an enlightening presentation. Now is a good moment to ask your questions. Do you have any? Okay. Has Rsph done business nationally in South Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa?
Thank you. That's a good question. So we start with South Africa. I think I showed Eskom as an example. So Eskom is involved from nuclear, Koeberg Power Station, to every single power station nationally in the country. We manage that. I mentioned the company, one of the Anglo companies, Amplats. We've already commissioned 5 sites for them, and we're going to 9 sites over the next few years. And this goes on. Sub-Saharan Africa, yes, the team, including myself, have personally got our fingers dirty in Sub-Saharan Africa. I mentioned DRC. Parle français, if you go there, you have to understand a little bit of French. You have to understand the culture. You need to understand there's wars going on in some of these countries. So yes, we understand the challenges and the opportunities that presents itself in Sub-Saharan Africa.
Very good. Thank you. Do we have any other questions from the audience? We have another one, Dilly. What expertise does Rsph have in the process industry?
Another excellent question. So Rsph was formed from day one in 2001, with having already had experience in the process industry. So it's in the DNA of the rifle shot team in terms of the stuff that's across the board in the process industry, right from food, beverages, oil, gas, mining, and the likes. So yes, it's in our DNA. We understand that we cannot take a solution, and take that to a beverages sector, which is slightly different to a mining sector or an oil and gas sector. So that's why the focus on those partnerships that you saw, as well as the expertise that we have. We have different sets of expertise for different industry sectors.
Thank you. This is our next question. What is Rsph expertise in value chain optimization?
Yeah, I think when I showed you that whole, what we commonly call in the commodities environment, from pit to port, from the time you dig the hole in the ground, extracting commodities like coal, through that entire value system of logistics, transportation, rail, going through the processing, blending, etc., and then going to port to get shipped. Our big countries these days that buy this are the likes of China and India. So we understand it, and we have expertise in that environment. So the offerings I shared with you from the various players like Aviva, ION, and the likes, and then we have subject matter experts. So one of the things I should take advantage of sharing with you is rifle shot as an example, because these things don't work in isolation. They work in a multi-vendor heterogeneous environment. So what we add value to our clients, I mentioned SAP more than once. A lot of the companies have installed an ERP system like SAP as an example in the manufacturing, oil, gas, petrochemical, mining industry. So we are able to also integrate, where we've actually built our own SQL scripts, etc., to integrate to this, which typically would take you many, many months before you get approval to do this from an OEM sitting in Germany or somewhere else in the world. So yes, we do have expertise in that particular area.
Thank you, Dilly.
Thank you, Felicia.
Okay. I think we're gonna move on to the last presentation, and it's from me. If we don't have any more questions. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So my talk is mining business benefits from your process data. It's basically an overview of statements or customers have made over the years. So I have this slide here just to remind you of the concept that Massimo introduced. It's infonomics, and we have 3 M's: measure, manage, and monetize.
Felicia, you haven't shared your screen yet.
Oh, I did share. Okay, let's do it 2 times. Share, yes, share my share entire screen. And I'm having, my share button is not, it's grayed out. Let me try share window. Okay, share window works. Do you see my screen? Do you see it now?
Yes, but you need to go to presentation mode.
Yep.
There we go.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that glitch. So I'm giving, here I'm going to present you an overview of how we mine business benefits from process data crossing multiple industries. Let's bring back the thought from Massimo in the first presentation. It's about measuring, managing, and monetizing your process data. And we are not in the Sigmafine, Pimsoft as a company, we are not in the business of measurement. We do not sell instruments. And while we do not sell your products, our job is to manage your data, your process data, and your operations data, so that you are monetizing your data in a transparent and justifiable way. And the way we do it, as Massimo mentioned, it's via primarily the balancing algorithm as well as the tracking algorithm. So we are here to take your data, process and management data, to put it in infrastructure and make it accessible so that you can make good decisions to improve your profitability. Or skill sets or product is agnostic. We have many customers in refining. All of these industries, I would say, on top are our bread and butter customers. Our growing industry, let's say, would be fertilizer and utilities, and we're targeting gas as our next industry to enter. And we're able to do this because the conservation principle of mass, energy, volume components is valid in all process and utilities. This is from the oil and gas world. Emerson is a global partner to Pimsoft, and they offer a service where they just survey your process data, your measurements data. And believe it or not, the material loss, the material you cannot find, okay, in any time period, whether it's daily, hourly, monthly, varies between 2.5% to 0.2%. The typical target is 0.5%, as you heard from Sive. That's a number that oil and gas, they like to stay below. But perhaps 0.5% doesn't mean anything to anybody. It looks like a pretty small number. It's probably so close to zero, it might seem insignificant to you. But here I'm presenting a slide from Sasol, from Cape Town, from Johannesburg, yeah. And he presented that just 1% deviation from a high value product can cost them 60 million rands per month. So while the percentage is small, when we're talking about large refineries, large facilities, or facilities that are producing high value product in metals and mining world, 1% variation can translate to a lot. And this is 1%. And we know that measurement system can go up to 2.5% in the oil and gas. And if we were to think about metals and mining, which is far more difficult to instrument and has more uncertainty than the liquid phase sister industry, perhaps the uncertainty can even go beyond 2.5%, and the numbers just become exponential. I'm sharing this presentation from MOL because they're an oil and gas company, and they've been with us for more than 20 years. So all these, the full presentations are fully available on our website, and I'm just here giving a synopsis. So this is an idea, just to give an idea of how big MOL is globally. In terms of size, they're producing 40 million barrels of oil per year. They're over 33 countries and 25,000 employees. And they've selected Sigmafine to take care of their mass balance. To give an idea, they've been with us, they are now over 6,000 elements. They have 16, you might be thinking more sites, the bigger the Sigmafine system, the more people you will need to take care of the production accounting solution. In fact, that's not the case. They've reduced their production accounting team from 16 to 4 over these years. And they've moved their loss. Their loss did not start at 2.5% as indicated by Emerson. They started at 6% way back in the 90s, and they're now down to 0.7, less than 0.7%. Sigmafine, if you remember the first slide, it's where we manage your measurements. So, and as you can see, the Sigmafine, they place Sigmafine, the mass and energy balance, not even beside your measure. So you have your instrumentation layer, you've got your data lake, your historian security, and when you put on top of that the Sigmafine, the AF models, taking care of your mass and energy balance, that's when you start to save. This is an overview of MOL in terms of how they're using Sigmafine. So the primary use, they moved it not just only in product, they started in production accounting, and now we're also taking care of their energies, their utilities, etc. And essentially, our job at MOL is we're giving them reliable data, but we're also telling them where the errors are. We're detecting the measurement errors and getting your production loss down from 7% to less than 0.7% is a big deal. And they're doing that, what's guiding that drive is the Sigmafine data set. It's giving them better data, and it's highlighting where the losses can be. And they reduced their team, they grew the models, they became larger in complexity, they moved just from production to energy, and they're also reducing their team. So Sigmafine has really paid for itself. If you are thinking to take Sigmafine into your organization, of course, you should think of us for your hydrocarbon accounting, but let's not forget the energy balance on your energy management side. And so Sigmafine, because we are agnostic, we can focus on your energy, we can look at your utilities, we can look on your production side. We can go towards, high performance monitoring, hourly mass and energy balance for energy intensive equipment. And so Sigmafine, it's more than a double-edged sword. It's got many dimensions, probably 3 or 4. So take a look at this presentation. It's pretty awesome how they're using Sigmafine to solve multiple business needs. This presentation is an overview. It's a snapshot of a presentation I did with Emily, and she's from Canada, and it's from ArcelorMittal. And this presentation is a taste for the registrants who are from the metals and mining world. ArcelorMittal in Canada covers the full value chain from the pit to port, let's say, as Dilly mentioned. So they've got the mines, they've got the beneficiation plants, they have the pelletizing plant, and also the rail and ships too. Their flow sheet looks like this, probably going to look like most iron ore facility. All your stockpiles, they are difficult to measure, probably impossible. You will have some measurements on your cyclone. And so at a glance, it looks like we wouldn't be able to do a mass balance, and it's probably the case, which is why they went to a mass and component balance, which improves the redundancy of the system. Prior to Sigmafine, every plant needs to do a balance, whether it's in Excel or not, and their production was done weekly. It was done with 5 Excel spreadsheets with a lot of macros inside. I take the time out to ask you, what's the cost implication of not having insight with a delay of a week? That's where ArcelorMittal was at. 1 second. And so they implemented Sigmafine, and Sigmafine is a connected model. It addresses, it takes care of your flows, your analyzers. Okay, and this is just a snapshot of what it looks like in an OSI soft client tool, the System Explorer. However, this is not really useful to give you insight, and so the information was aggregated and presented in a visionary tool, PyVision, where at a snapshot they can see which assets, just by color coding, green, it's good, or red, the asset is not performing. And so in the overview of the data source, they are using SQL Server, they're using the PyData Archive, and they have lab results. That's the data set that they are starting with. The models that they built covered the Sigmafine, which is taking care of the mass and component balance. And they have another AF, as an asset framework model, which is taking care of the asset utilization. And also the aim is to be able to get the right data to the decision makers. And the visualization tools used by ArcelorMittal was the PyVision as well as the Power BI. Sigmafine backbone, we are technology partners, it's both Microsoft and OSI Soft, and so our data set is easily consumed by these by these tools. If you remember the previous slide of how they did it weekly, lots of Excel spreadsheet, and this is what it now looks like at ArcelorMittal. They have their production, their daily production. When it's red or green, tells them if they're making the target or not. Red, they're not making the target. They're 5% less than target, beyond 5% less. But they can also data mine to understand what asset is causing, where did this production loss come from, which asset is the bottleneck. And so this is the value tree of their asset that contributed to the daily production. Clicking on any of these assets, they can look back in time on the performance of the asset. They can see the data quality of the measurements. And this is all easy to share with a hyperlink. So this is taking the data, it's transforming it from time series, it's moving it to an asset, a KPI, and it's making it accessible to production engineers, to managers, etc., etc. And last but not least, going to present to you the material balance from a cost tracking in a pharmaceutical plant, which was presented by my colleague Katia earlier, a few years ago. It seemed like yesterday here in Italy. And the biopharma production world is pretty different to metals and mining as well as oil and gas. It's very strict. The data set, it's not just the making the targets, it's about the utilization of the materials, being able to know, to link your performance to your suppliers. It's a lot of reporting. It's not just, it's a lot of, these are materials that we're consuming in our bodies. So apart from making the product in spec, you need to prove to yourself and to the authorities that this product is fit for use. So we asked, I'm asking you guys, if from the biopharma food area, can you accurately account for your waste? In terms of, can you segregate your process waste from off-spec batches? Every batch is meant to make products, but not all batches do, and some batches become waste. You also have process waste, which occurs in every batch. That's a pretty difficult ask if you try to do that in Excel. I ask another question to the bio industry here. Do you know if any supplier can affect your performance? Not all, so I mean, it's a bioproduct as a raw material, which inherently is very variable. But perhaps, do you know the impact of this variation on your process performance? Another thing that's probably difficult to tackle in Excel. And I ask you if you are even able to do this today or on one batch, but do you have an infrastructure to be able to do it hourly, daily, as per batch? Can you do it repeatably, not just today, but for a sustainable period of time? If your answer is no to any of these questions, continue to listen. So Massimo mentioned he gave the cat out of the bag, but Sigmafine has two arms. It's the balancing arm that Siva spoke about. We have the mass component, composition, energy, volume balance. And these can, if you build your models correctly, it can support your loss monitoring, production accounting, inventory management, because we will always give you reconciled value for inventories and flows. And we have the tracking arm. Our tracking arm has two capabilities. One, it can track business properties such as supplier, but we can also track and estimate chemical and physical properties based on upstream or downstream measurements. And this supports your material traceability. So it's linking your raw material properties to your products and your final products and your inventory. And if you put both together, your mass balance, your balancing algorithm, as well as our tracking algorithm, you can support a pretty comprehensive data set that can help you with genealogy, as well as your golden batch detection. On this project, they asked us, can you establish the raw material consumption for both product and waste? They asked us, can you evaluate the cost for product and waste generation per batch? And they also asked Pimsoft, can you quantify the process waste, out of spec waste on the total cost of production? And we said, yes, And to support golden batch deduction, we need to do everything. We have to do the mass balance as well as the composition tracking. When we want to go towards a cost, for us, this is business intelligence. With this customer, we went with Microsoft Power BI. And of course, again, to data mine the mass balance and the quality and the composition tracking, to improve your inventory and planning operations, we can query our system with our SQL database to support this deduction. Flow sheet for this site, it had several raw materials. They're stored. There's a sterilization unit. It goes to a seed fermenter, starting fermenter, then it goes to the main fermenter, and then it goes to the recovery. That's the ideal situation. Everything is going to plan. And with our composition tracking at every inventory point, you can see the volume in terms of its raw material equivalent. However, when things don't go according to plan, all of this effort becomes waste. And so while we can do the balance and we are able to label, let's say, the materials which finally became waste and what became product. And on the data mining side, we got some insights. Okay, as Dilly were talking about, how do we give you insights? And when we evaluated the product side, we realized that with the customer, of course, that the low magnesium, low acid, and higher sugar was typical of the batches that were successful, while the batches that became waste, they had higher magnesium, higher acid, and much lower sugar. I bring your point to just the acid, 0.2%, 0.5%. This is probably in the limit of your instrumentation, opening and closing a valve over 20 days. This is probably something you wouldn't be able to see on your raw data. It probably to solve, and if the acid is the problem, to solve something like this, you probably need to even change your setup of your dosing, because you need very, very tight control. So this is what we talk about giving insight. We are not the experts in the bio production, but what we're good at taking your data, cleaning it up, contextualizing it in terms of time, in terms of assets, and we're able to data mine it and bring it into a dashboard form for the decision makers, for the industry principals, for the experts to make the next step. We're giving them the right decision to enable them to make the best decisions. When you do tracking as algorithm, you can not only see your results in terms of tons or kilograms, you can see it in terms of cost. You can see your inventories in terms of its raw material equivalent. So it's not just the total tonnage, but you can see its equivalent, or you can see the cost. There are different flavors for the cost accountant. He's interested in seeing the cost per day. For the production guys, he's interested in the tonnage because he needs volume and raw material assurance to plan his next batches. So Sigmafine features and associate benefits if you're in the food and bio industry. The mass balance, or in any industry, or mass or balancing algorithm gets rid of inconsistency in your measured data on mass volume component. It also gives you estimates for areas which are unmeasured. And we also give you data quality indicators on which measurements are trustable and which measurements are not. On our tracking, on our material tracking algorithm, this is where we're able to link your business properties to your performance. It can be cost, it can be supplier, it can be origin. If we're talking about fair trade, if you want to know what fraction of fair trade is your product, if you're a chocolate manufacturer and you've got cocoa, some cocoa which is fair trade and some which is not, and you need to declare to become a fair trade chocolate, you need to be a certain percentage above with the fair trade origin. We can track properties like that. And the good thing about Sigmafine, we have both the OSI backbone as well as the Microsoft backbone, which allows us to provide dashboarding tools, compatible dashboarding tools in these two pillars, but also any third-party solution will be compatible to Microsoft or OSI Soft. And with dashboarding, it makes the data accessible, contextualizable for decision makers. So in summary, as I talked about 3 different industries, the primary impact of Sigmafine is getting better data from your meters, getting the maintenance on target, let's say. We're also, for those who trust us and our long-standing customers, we go beyond the fence of the refinery. We can go to your business data, to your ERP data. We can provide ERP data, replacement data. So when you do a Sigmafine project, these 3 pillars you should get. You should get estimation of your measured flows and inventories. You should get guidance to which meters to measure. You should get better data to trade on. When you start to trust the Sigmafine data, you can start to take actions. This, I call it the secondary impact, because now you know that the Sigmafine data is trustable. You can start pushing your inventories. You can say, I don't need 20% gap because I'm not so sure what my inventories are. When you know the uncertainty on your inventories, you can push volume, you can push capacity. Similarly for your yields. Before, you probably thought you had a 5% uncertainty or a 10% uncertainty with your asset performance. So am I 90, am I 95? When you're 90, you don't do anything because you hope it's 95. With Sigmafine, when it's 90, it will tell you it's 90 plus or minus 1%. You can push a bit more. You can ask the guys to go further. That's just taking action based on the data set that Sigmafine is providing you now. And I talk about the future. I believe that, we're going to be pushed to beyond, getting more out of our current facilities. And in Europe, we've already started the carbon trading scheme here. So the Sigmafine data set is so transparent that it is really already in a good shape to get your data that you could need for trading carbon or circular economy. Carbon trading scheme basically the fundamental here is you're doing better than your nameplate and your nameplate capacity, your nameplate efficiency. And to prove that you're doing better than your nameplate, we're not talking about 30% changes here. We're talking about very small marginal increase, which it's very difficult to prove with instrumentation. You need a statistical approach that you can declare, you can prove to yourselves and to the authorities that you're doing a pretty good job. And similarly, circular economy, it needs to be transparent and trustable, not just in yourself, but to the authorities that are running this scheme. And I call this the tertiary, the augmented data set. And Sigmafine is here to support you in your data set now, just at the easy lying fruits, the secondary as well as the tertiary. Thank you for listening, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
So far, the only question we had is somebody had a loss of power and they were wondering if a recording would be available. So just to let them know, we'll have a recording of the entire seminar plus each presentation will be separately broken out, and we'll be sending that to you shortly.
Okay, so, is it possible to track production batches? Yes, I'm not sure if you want to know. We can aggregate your data set for a batch. So in the oil and gas world, they normally aggregate their data on a daily case. So they're interested in midnight to midnight, 6 till 6. In the bioprocess, maybe daily is not, that time context is not important for you. Your time context is the start of a batch to the end of a batch. We haven't showed you what Sigmafine looks like, but the time context is completely open. So when a case is created, you can create at the start time and the end time. It can be ad hoc. So just by defining it's a batch context, all the data related in that period of time, whether it's 21 days or 15 days, the mass balance and the composition tracking will be applied to that time context, if that's what you mean. If you're interested in knowing the properties of a batch, so let's say your batch is it's a long process, it lasts a month, and you have 3 suppliers of sugar, supplier A, B, C, and you want to know at the end of the batch how much sugar came from supplier A or B and C. The answer is yes. We first do the mass balance and for the full batch, and we do the composition tracking for the full batch, the time context. And we're able to, these movements, these labelings of the different suppliers, you can then see your production in terms of not just the total tonnage, you can see it, how much raw material was consumed from each supplier of that batch. So the answer is yes. How to use tracking in mining? Good question. I didn't show you a customer we have in Israel. They have a phosphate mine, and they're using tracking on not the business properties, but chemical properties. So in the phosphate mine, they produce many grades of phosphate for themselves and for third parties. And their, let's say, beneficiation plan is very simple. It's crushing and grinding and washing. And they only measure the output of the crusher. And then they have 20, they've got hundreds of piles that have different grades. And they do not have instrumentation on each of these piles. So what they're doing prior to Sigmafine was Excel spreadsheets. And so they know how much tons they put in each of these piles, and they know the composition, the chemical composition, you know, the main, the phosphate and the impurities of interest. And they're moving, they're blending, and they have these 100 piles. And at the end of the day, they get an order and they need to make a grade, which they're going to mix again these piles to make this grade. And they have no measurements downstream after the crusher. So what they have is crushing and grinding with a measurement, lots of stockpiles, and then they have a dryer at the end. And they're selling products on spec. How do you do that? You can instrument at the end at the dryer, which they probably will do in the future in Sigmafine. Quality tracking will be a backup data set or a preliminary data set until they get the results from their analyzers, whether it's lab or online. In the meantime, what they're using is Sigmafine quality tracking. So in this case, Sigmafine is providing a replacement data set that they do not have. So they're taking their upstream measurements. They're using very simple mixing models, so first in, first out, or well mixed. And they're using their declared movements to be able to estimate the qualities of the product that they're selling to their internal customer, let's say the phosphate fertilizer plant internally, or to third party. So that's another use of tracking in mining. And if I don't have any other questions, thank you for asking me those two questions. If you don't have any other question, I will move to the closing presentation, with has a little bit of a surprise. So I'm going to close, and I'm closing with something new. I did a PhD and they told me your closing should not have anything new that you didn't discuss. So we're going to break the rules of academia here. You've heard about Sigmafine, but we actually have something new. It's the Sigmafine Hub. And I've told you before that we've got two pillars, Microsoft and OSIsoft as our technology partner, but there's the web. And let's say that's the third pillar. So Sigmafine Hub is totally web friendly. We're developing lots of apps, and it's covering visualization, data mining, security, etc. Just to give an idea of the roadmap of this suite of product, which is based on internet technology, web technology, you can see we have a full pipeline of products between now and 2023.
Hey, Felicia, do you want to share your screen?
Again, I make the same mistake. Okay. I always think that everybody's seeing my screen. So share screen, share window, share, yes, and share. Okay. So can you see my screen this time? Yes. So I'm closing with something new. So as I mentioned, we have a third pillar of Sigmafine, which is the web technology. And the name of our technology, which is web compatible, is the Sigmafine Hub. And it's going to contain quite a few apps. At the moment, we envision 5 apps covering visualization, analytics, security, and more. This is our pipeline of products that we plan to release between now and 2023. It's pretty full. We've got 6 products that we're releasing, or to release the Sigmafine Hub, which is the visualization and admin. And we're on our way to release the studio. Just to give you a highlight, I know I'm quite cognizant of the fact that you haven't really seen Sigmafine, but just to let you know, the Sigmafine Hub, a third dimension of Sigmafine, is going to take care of your visualization. It's allowing collaboration. So within the Sigmafine environment, you'll be notified of actions of your colleagues. You can text message. The system itself will give you notification of actions that could affect your work. It's customizable. We're going to give you capability to do reports directly in Sigmafine. You don't need to go to Power BI or PyVision or a third party. Right here in Sigmafine, you'll be able to see some contextualize your data beyond time. You can look at KPIs, etc. And the Sigmafine Hub, it's going to be extendable. We see 6 apps at the moment, but the Sigmafine Hub being web-based can be extended to develop apps that we haven't even yet envisioned today. I will remind you, I kindly invite you to register to the Aviva Pi World. It's this October, it's like next week. So sign up, we're going to be there. I'm going to be there. I'm an industry principal for the industries I spoke about. My colleagues are going to be there. You'll have access to the full suite of industry principals. We are 4. Join us at our booth. It's a complimentary event. In November 9th, 10th, and 11th, we're going to have our Sigmafine Virtual Summit. It's an annual event. It's also complimentary. You're going to hear more about the Sigmafine Hub. There will be also the demo. You'll get access to us, the industry principals, and more. Our product development team will be also online. And you will hear lots of stories around the world. So we're going to have APAC session, EMEA sessions, and the US sessions. Again, all will be complimentary. By registering after the event, you'll be able to access the presentations. Really, thanks everyone for joining me. Siver from Astron, Dilly from Rsph, Massimo, my boss, and to you participants, thanks again for joining. Sorry for the interruption. My son has a temperature, and with COVID, he was sent home. Thanks again, and hope to see you soon, either at the Pi World, at the Aviva Pi event, or at the Sigmafine Annual Summit. Thank you.